Welcome, creative adventurers. I'm Debbie Cohn with D Cohn Designs. Thank you for stopping by today. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make a traditional quilt block. It's called the Dutchman's Puzzle. This video is part of a series that I'm doing. I'm sewing along with aquiltinglife.com's Block of the Month for 2022. That's Sherry McConnell at aquiltinglife.com. Please be sure to visit her YouTube channel where she has videos about information about all of the blocks, and her blog at aquiltinglife.com where she gives you the free patterns and additional information about this block of the month. So this month I'm showing you the August 2022 block of the month. It's the Dutchman's Puzzle. It's simple and easy to do. Behind me on my makeshift design wall, I have the blocks up that I've done so far this year. Here is the one we'll be working on today. That's the Dutchman's Puzzle. If you like this video, please tell a friend and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Head on over to my blog at dcohndesigns.com. That's where you'll find more inspiration and a couple of free patterns for your own personal use as well. So let's get started. As you can see from my block, this block is divided into 8 flying geese. They're set in pairs around in a circle. I've chosen 4 fabrics so that I can have my flying geese in pairs for each of the colors in the quilt that I want to feature. Most of my fabrics are directional, so I have fussy cut the rectangles for the flying geese. I'll show you what I mean. If you have directional fabric, you may want to fussy cut like I did with this flying geese. If you don't have directional fabric, like this fabric in red on the right, you don't have to worry about the direction. Just cut out your rectangle anywhere in the fabric you'd like. For each of the 8 flying geese, you'll need 1 rectangle and 2 background squares. Consult your pattern for the sizes needed for the size block that you're constructing. I'm doing the 12-inch block. To construct your flying geese, the first thing you'll need to do is to mark the back of your background squares. You can use a ruler, any straight edge, or you can even use the lines on your mat. For me, I'm using a medium seam marker because I find it accurate and easy to use. You'll want to line up your straight edge at the top and the bottom diagonally across the square and then mark it with a pencil. Don't forget to allow a thread's width for the width of the pencil itself. And you mark it just like that, and then you'll do the same on the back of your other squares. Here's another one I've already marked. Now we're ready to put the background squares on our flying geese. To do that, I've fussy cut mine so I won't cut his cute little head off. I'm going to put the background square up in the corner of the rectangle, snug right up on the edge, and you can pin if you'd like. I'm not going to, but you can. You would put a pin across here to keep it in place. I'm going to carry it to the machine, and I'm going to sew just to the outside of the diagonal line, like 1 thread's width. The reason for that is to account for the fold over when we fold the rectangular piece along the seam line to complete the square. So let's take it to the machine. I'm at the machine. I have my background square lined up right in the corner. I'm going to stitch just 1 thread's width to the outside of the diagonal line to account for the fold over. You'll want to chain piece and do that for all of one side of your flying geese. The next thing we're going to do is iron it back and then trim. Let's do that now. Here I have my rectangle with the background square on my wool mat. I'm going to give it a little press, and then I'm going to fold it back gently with my fingers so I don't distort the triangle, and then press it. Now it's time to trim it. So I'm just checking to make sure before I trim that it reaches all the way to the edge of the rectangle, and it does, or pretty close. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this excess section here. And you can eyeball or you can use your rotary cutter. It's approximate 1/4 of an inch. And that's what I did. It's time to press it all the way back again. And we're going to add the other rectangle. Again, we're going to lay it across. Make sure you've ironed this first. Don't try to sew them both on at one time. It doesn't work. I know, I did it the hard way once on another project. Okay, so I've got this snugged all the way up to the corner here. Now I'm going to stitch along the outside, just 1 thread's width on the outside of that diagonal line all the way across, and repeat the process of folding it back, pressing it, and trimming. I'm stitching just a thread's width away to the outside along the diagonal line. Let's take it to the iron and press it back and trim. Again, I'm going to give it a quick press, fold it back, press gently, and then press it. Little steam if needed. Now I'm going to trim 1/4 inch approximately. Press it again. There it is. What we need to do next is to trim it to the correct size in the pattern. I'll show you how to do that. There are several ways to trim your flying geese. You could use a Flying Geese specialty ruler. That would be great. I don't happen to have one, so I'm just going to use my ruler and my mat and my rotary cutter. So this is how you do it if you don't have any specialty tools. First, I turn my flying geese this way so I can make sure that it's approximately 2.5 inches wide in this case. If it's not, I'm not worrying about it a lot. The seam allowance will take up some of that. I lay in this case, I'm using a 2.5 inch ruler. If you don't have one, you can use the lines on your mat. And I'm just giving it a quick trim along one side to even it up. Next, I'm going to make sure it's at least 4.5 inches. That's the size I need for this geese. So what I do is, you can see it's a little wonky out here. No problem, we're going to trim it down. So I'm looking to see if there is excess. I look at the points right here, the diagonal points, and I'm going to make sure those are at the 4.5, 0, if this is the 0 mark, so to speak. This is 4.5, and if not, I center the excess so that it's equal on both sides, here and here. Then I lay and I make sure that it's lined up, and I make sure it's lined up across the diagonal of the geese. Lay my ruler down at the 4.5 inch mark and trim the excess wobbliness there. And I turn it around. This time I line up this side that I've just cut with the 0 line, so to speak, right there, making sure it's even along this part as well. And I'm laying down and trimming any excess again at the 4.5 inch mark. There's not a lot on this side. There we go. And if it's a tiny bit wobbly, that's okay. It'll be taken up in the seam allowance. So let me show you all of the flying geese for this block. Here I've laid out the Dutchman's puzzle block. You can decide what fabric placement works best for you. You could alternate so that there's a red and a blue and a turquoise and a multicolor. I chose pairs, and I chose to focus the eye on the sloths. So here and here, they're fussy cut, and I will have them the correct direction. The same with here and here. This is a multi-direction print, and this one, I know the Christmas trees are sideways, but I'm okay with that because my focus is on the sloths. I also made sure that I have the sloths so they're not next to each other, so that the eye travels around the block. It's pretty simple to put together. I'm going to stitch them in pairs. I'm going to stitch these two right sides together with a 1/4 inch seam, these two, these two, these two. Then I'm going to sew them together here, here, and then the whole block. So let's get stitching. I've got my flying geese lined up, all ready to stitch. I'm just going to chain piece them through. You can pin if you want to. I'm not going to. I'm just going to make sure that the edges of the rectangles are lined up carefully. You can use a 1/4 inch foot like I have here. You can use diagonal seam tape, a sewing ledge, or whatever else might work best for you to get that 1/4 inch seam. I've chain pieced the 4 of them. Now it's time to finger press the seams and then stitch the pairs together. Here are the 4 quadrants of the block. I'm going to trim them up individually and then stitch the 2 halves together and then the whole block together. Quick tip, I suggest that you press the top. A quick tip is on pressing your seams. I suggest that you press this seam here when you join the 2 upper quadrants. Press it this way toward the right. Then when you're sewing these 2 together, press this seam toward the left. That way now we'll be able to nest the seams quickly and easily and stitch with a 1/4 inch seam and join the 2 halves together. I've stitched the whole block together. My suggestion is to press this seam open where you join them right here. That will make your block lie more flat, but you could also press to one side or the other. I'm going to press mine open. And there's the block. I won't be showing you how to attach the turn dash borders. You'll want to refer to the January 2022 video from aquiltinglife.com on her YouTube channel at A Quilting Life. There she gives you instructions about how to sew the churn dash border. I'll come back to you in just a moment with the completed block, including the churn dash border. And here's the completed block with the borders. I'll try to scoot out a little bit so you can see it. That's it for this month for the A Quilting Life Block of the Month 2022. I'll be back again next month with the September Block of the Month. Please join me again next week for another creative quilting adventure. I'll see you soon.